Hello, BroadwayCon. Welcome, welcome, and thank you for being here for this Broadway conversation that we've called Ready, Willing, and Very Abled to discuss inclusion in the performing arts. My name is David Connolly. I am a middle-aged white man with brown glasses wearing a blue shirt in front of a white wall with some plants over my shoulder. I use the pronouns he, him, and I qualify for this panel by being a double below-knee amputee, the first and last, unfortunately, to have been on Broadway. So my aim in this and many other conversations is to change that statistic. I'm going to allow everyone to, allow is the wrong word. I'm going to ask my fellow panelists to introduce themselves to you, and we'll start with Prince. Hi, Prince.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm very happy to be here and be a part of this conversation. I am a Black actor based in Toronto. I have second and third degree burns, and I'm also a bilateral arm amputee. It was an acquired accident in 2012. My walls have some gold decal, sort of like print design, an attempt at designing and doing some interior design when I got really bored. Yeah, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Prince. Hi, John McGinty.
Hi, hello. First of all, Prince, I wanted to let you know you've got a better background on your wall than mine. Yours is much more decorative. Hello, everybody. My name is John McGinty, and this is how I sign my name. I am a white male. I am a deaf actor. I'm in my mid-30s. I'm wearing a blue button-down shirt. My background is sort of a light bluish tint on the wall. I'm sitting in a brown chair. I am thrilled to be part of this discussion about how we can envision and improve authentic representation from the way it has been in the past, the way it is now, and with a goal for making it better in the future for theater, television, and film. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
Thank you, John. Hi, Natasha.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Natasha, Ofili, and this is my name sign. I'm a Black woman. I'm an actress. I'm deaf as well, and I live in LA. My background is essentially a lot of things, to be honest. I am involved in, I have a long background with certain things. Oh, wait, let me see. My background has a lot of things going on back here, if you can see that. A couple things in my background, a lot of art. I'm wearing a salmon-colored shirt with brown earrings, and it's plaid overalls, white plaid overalls, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled for this opportunity and looking forward to BroadwayCon. It's getting close. That's really exciting. And I'm really thrilled to be here because I really want to see more BIPOC, BIPOC involved actors. So I really want them to share their authentic stories and really share, the content that they're able to share. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I'd like to see that more in the acting world.
Wonderful, thank you. Hello, Gail.
Hello. I am a Caucasian Brahma with a silver blonde pixie cut. I am sitting in front of a black and white screen, and I use the pronouns she and her, also Aunt Gail, Mom, and Yaya. I am on this panel because I'm a talent agent, and I work specifically with talent with disabilities. I have the pleasure of representing some of the wonderful panelists here today and have been on some pretty amazing journeys with some of them. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Samuel. What's up?
Hi, everyone. My name is Samuel Yates, and I am coming to you from Los Angeles, and I am a white male in my early 30s. I am a deaf hearing aid user with sensor and neural deafness, and I'm a theater professor. In autumn, I'll be at Millikan University as assistant professor of theater history and directing. I've been invited by David to be on this panel. Thank you all, because I am working on my first book project, which is called Cripping Broadway: Disability in the American Musical. So I'm thinking about not only the history of disability in performance, but how disability and the triple threat are intimately interconnected in the ways that we think about musical theater production and performance.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and welcome again. Yes, 3 cheers for all of that. What a room, what a room. And we're not in these rooms often enough. There aren't enough of these conversations. So I'm so glad that we get to have it. I want to jump straight to your thoughts on where you think the prioritized responsibility lies. So if you had to pick one area of change, that if you had the magic wand and could focus your energy towards that, what would it be? Let's start with John.
All right, I'll start. I think you have proposed a terrific question, David. Honestly, I think it starts with ourselves, each of us, because each of us has a different way of bringing our authenticity and responsibility into each story, or behind the scenes, or in front of the scenes. You know, we know what the truth lived experience is, and we know how to make something become a positive conversation, whether it's interacting with the writer or an audience member or a casting director. When I think of my personal experiences that I've had, sometimes I was quite young and had a lot of insecurity about when was the right time to speak up, how to choose my battles. And as I've gone in my journey here and found more allies, we have Gail, who's been a fantastic advocate, guiding and paving the road for all of us that work with her. And I would have to say, if it wasn't for her ability to speak the truth, I don't think I would be here today.
Right.
So I think it starts with each one of us.
Amen.
Thank you, John. That's a great segue. Gail, over to you.
Well, thank you, John, very much. It's a pleasure to be on the journeys I've been on with you and Natasha, and in the future with David. I've often said this business is like waiting for a big wave to come in, and we're all kind of paddling out and sitting in the ocean, riding the swells until the perfect wave comes to ride it in. And I think it's twofold with how we create the change. One is we create the people waiting to ride the wave that have the talent and have the training and are ready to go. Because if they're not ready when that wave comes, they're going to wipe out. That's just the way it's going to be. And then we need to work with the creatives to see the talent and create the wave for us. And I'd say in the last 5 years, I've seen more movement than I did in the first 25 years of the advocacy work that I've been doing here for 30 years. And I think it's for a few reasons. I think it's because it's a time where we're recognizing diversity in a way that we haven't been before. We finally have people in the full inclusion generation coming of age. You know, we didn't provide a inclusive education for children until 1974. So we had to wait for those people to become grown-ups, not just those with disabilities, but the kids that were exposed to these children as their playmates to become adults and understand that it's an inclusive world. So I think that's happened. I think, you know, Hollywood's more aware of the fact that we need to be inclusive and including disability finally, because when the Grand Coalition came about in 1991, disability was not invited to the table, but we're there now. So that's made a difference. And I think I have to give a little credit to KMR for creating a sort of, if you build it, they will come. As much as we want our diversity department to go away because everybody is fully included everywhere, including with agencies, we're finding that there's a lot of power in the numbers. And when somebody knows we're a one-stop shop, that they can come to us and find talent, I think that helps. So I think there's a lot of things to help create the change.
Thank you. Speaking of creating the change, Natasha, you've had an amazing last couple of years. What do you think about this question?
Wow. Whew. Okay. I mean, it's a really good question because I remember whenever I first became an actress a couple years ago, and I was very just, you know, I was unaware of what was happening because my heart was in it, but I loved the storytelling. I loved acting and everything, including in it. And then when I met Gail, she gave me that support and I really saw, you know, that talent within myself. And even though it's tough, you know, it was a tough couple years, just ups and downs all over the place. It was just kind of difficult. Like my heart was always there and I was always ready to give that out to the world. But, you know, there were barriers left and right, of course. And, you know, I just had to, you know, keep going and be strenuous with my work. And as I kept going, you know, I just noticed like that little circle of people was the most important thing because they really uplift you and support you. And finally, like I had that person who believed in me to really share my story and then to get involved in my characters. And that was a beautiful thing. So, you know, that was really the reason why I'm at where I'm at now. So I'm really looking forward to that for myself. Another deaf and hard of hearing, especially by people of color, because that's one of those things where those opportunities come up and it just happens that way. And it's a really great way to get that advocacy.
Thank you. Prince, where do you think the responsibility lies for change?
Yeah, I think it comes from the creatives being able to work with people that are disabled artists, but not being afraid to have those conversations that need to be had to figure out what we need to do and how to make them more inclusive. I always say disability inclusion is sort of like the final frontier, you know, the last battle, the last voice that's kind of heard in the fight for equality and inclusion. But to sort of jump on what Gail says, I am kind of hopeful in seeing a lot of change, even just within the few years that I've been working. Yeah, people want to be able to accept us and, you know, and bring in more inclusion, but sometimes just don't know how, you know, and there's a fear to figure out what that is, you know, because you want to stay safe. So when you're able to sort of, you know, jump off the cliff a bit and have those real conversations that need to be had, I think we can make real movement, right? And having acquired a disability also gave me the opportunity to see both sides of working in the industry. And I was definitely hesitant to get back into acting because I didn't know how people would include me. I didn't know how I would be accepted, and that was my own fear. But I'm learning a lot along the way and also seeing that people do want to make that change. But yeah, I think it's the creatives, it's the characters that are you know, you're playing, that they're really authentic, you know, it doesn't come from some lie or you know, you see Oscars and usually the ones playing disabled actors have no lived experience of it, and that's why they get the Oscar, because, you know, we're all cheering them on. But it'd be lovely to see real people with varying forms of disability just playing any kind of characters, you know, and that's what we need more of. So yeah.
Thank you. Samuel, you will have more statistics than I have in this regard about what Prince talked about, which is this final frontier of the subject of inclusion and how that has kind of blown up in the last year in the best possible way. But do you find that disability is not always included in those conversations?
Sure. I think that, to Prince's comment, disability inclusion is tricky in part because we actually have legislation that I think many people assumed that with the passage of the ADA that automatically disabled people were included in rehearsal spaces, were able to literally enter a rehearsal hall or even a casting place, which is not always what's possible or what's indeed capable given the physical structures. So when we're thinking about the final frontier, I think it's not only reimagining world of the play in terms of making a theatrical space that is not only accessible but reflective of the diverse embodiments of the real world, but also the production process itself, asking at every step, not only are we casting in ways that are equitable, but are we also producing work that is doing more than just using disability as a metaphor? Are we producing work that is thinking about how the disability is diegetically driving the story, dramaturgically driving the story in a way that isn't, a killer cure narrative or a sort of easy trope, what a lot of disability studies scholars call a super crip, right? Someone who is, extraordinarily disabled, but at the same time, the heart of the story, like a Tiny Tim kind of character. So it's thinking not only in terms of material production, but also making sure that we're providing content for production that is helping codify to the audience that these are significant and meaningful changes.
Because for those who are new to the subject watching, the goal, of course, is to have disabled people play disabled roles. The bigger goal is to have disabled people play not disabled roles, right, everybody? Yeah, and John, you just had an incredible experience of that. Do you want to share what happened on New Amsterdam and how you came to create that?
Yes. So first, I want to give a shout out to a wonderful casting director named David Cap, which is short for Capillariatis. He has been working for making casting inclusive for everyone, including people with disability. He has been pushing that boundary, I feel. And so I have been quite fortunate to have the opportunity to work with him on different projects. For example, he was working on King Lear when it was done on Broadway. And so he has brought me into the casting room several times, and we've always had good conversations about why a doctor can't be portrayed by a deaf actor, because out in the real world, we do have teachers who are deaf, doctors who are deaf. A lot of people out there have disabilities in different professions. So I really thank David because of all of those good discussions. And of course, there are always questions that are arising when they think about that. If we bring a deaf character into this world, what is that going to look like? How will the other senior writers deal with this? Do they know sign? It's all part of the conversation. And again, I think it's our responsibility to educate them, not just to say that the person has to know sign, but to think about a lot of options of how we communicate. We communicate using speech to text or texting or paper and pad in the real world. So there's so many ways we can encourage people to change their thinking about that. So he brought me into the room. I was cast. And one moment I want to talk about on the set, the director of that episode was Michael Slovis. And he was the on-set director, and I remember when I first met him, we started talking about how would I communicate with the actors who have been on the show for a long time, and I am a colleague now, and so would they know some signs? And the best thing I've ever heard someone say, he said, if you want to use sign yourself, just use it. You don't have to have a reason behind it. The beauty of that simple statement, that I don't have to have a reason for what I do. I don't have to explain what it is I do and what would happen if I was a doctor there who was deaf. So it was a great experience, and I do believe this kind of thing is going to continue. And I think when we speak up, not only for ourselves, it helps our community. Because as Natasha was just said, we want to keep building diversity. We want more people that are people of color with disabilities. We have all of our own people that support us, and then to bring in people like Gail, who are advocates, is wonderful, and I'm grateful for all of that.
Isn't this great? Oh, my heart. Gail, you said your goal is to change perceptions one character at a time. And I want to get a tattoo. It's just my favorite thing. What do you think the biggest barrier is for you as an agent to create that change?
That change. It's people who are not people who are fearful. I think there's a fear of new, there's the fear of unknown, and I think every time we create one character, we create known to that many more people. So I think that people in our industry are watching what we're creating. For instance, when Natasha was on The Politician as a school principal, that was a lovely opportunity. That was a speaking role that we just went in and said, hey, what about Natasha? And they went for that. And with New Amsterdam, which is where John worked with David Kapp, when at Series Fest, I was able to talk with the two executive producers. And I said to them, I hope you'll consider my clients for professionals and not just for patients on your show. I said, I have a vivid memory as a 15-year-old of my little sister sliding on a box and putting her teeth through her upper lip. And we went to the emergency hospital, and everyone just kept saying to my mother, we have to wait for this plastic surgeon because he's going to be the best. And this guy walked in, he was a little person with hip dysplasia. And when he walked in, I saw my mother's face, because she thought Dr. Kildare or Ben Casey was coming to take care of her baby. And I remember he stood up on a stool over my sister's face, offered her a bite of his sweet roll, which he was munching on as he came in the door. And he won my mother over. And he did the best work for my sister that anyone could have done. And my mother suggested this plastic surgeon to every friend that ever needed one after that. And that experience stuck in my head. And I shared it with the producers of New Amsterdam early on. And we've had, I would say five to seven people who recur on that show regularly, one being a little person who's in Yarda. So, it's all sharing our voices when we can and educating, like I said, one character at a time, so that character, creates 10 more characters maybe, or 10 more opportunities for characters. And then specifically theater, as we're talking about here today. I mean, John was the first deaf hunchback in theater, which was amazing. And that was quite a journey. Mickey Rowe was the first autistic Christopher in Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night. But then the things that really excite me are things like Sandra Mae Frank, who'd been the lead in Spring Awakening, Deaf West Spring Awakening on Broadway. She went to Oklahoma Lyric Theater, I think that's the name. They thought, what if we took what if we took Fiddler on the Roof and we made Hodel, the middle sister who goes away to Siberia with the radical young man? What if we made them deaf? What if Hodel not only decided to leave her family because she loved this man, but because they had a shared culture? And in the show, that moment when she signs as the song "Far from the Home I Know," I mean, there's not a dry eye in the house because you understand the passion behind Hodel so much more than you did before. And the very cool thing they did is whenever Hodel was in the house, they used ASL. Other than that, it was a spoken play. But in the wedding scene, when they sang Sunrise, Sunset, one chorus was totally silent, all in ASL. You don't think this changed the ideas and the understanding of deafness for the community that saw this every show? I mean, these are the things that just really excite me and make me happy.
Isn't that what theater's supposed to do? Aren't we supposed to be showing people how different ways to navigate the world? Isn't that the way it's supposed to go? Natasha, you are the first Black deaf woman to play a character for Marvel, and we're so excited for you.
Thank you.
Please tell us the kind of trials and tribulations of that journey.
I mean, I had no idea it was going to blow up like this. I had no idea what was going to become of it at all. This experience itself was beautiful. It was awesome because I had a great team at Insomniac Games. It was very open-minded, very willing to work with me. And the stories from a deaf person, and, you know, it's not really about being deaf exactly. That character's name is Haley. Sorry, clarifying. Haley Cooper. Thank you. Haley Cooper was the character's name. And she's an artist. She was working with art and, you know, to save her community. She was an advocate for the people and kind of rebelling for the people also. And she's told her story through art, and that's it. It's not about being deaf at all. So that was really the beautiful thing about the story there is, you know, her journey through, you know, fighting with, you know, Spider-Man and meeting Spider-Man. And, you know, I was really inspired by that. It was awesome. She's a teenage girl too. Excuse me. So really seeing that on Spider-Man, you know, she's just human. She's just a human, you know, girl, and, you know, it's great. And, you know, it's really great seeing that and really inspiring. And it's really making waves in our community, especially our Black and brown communities, because, you know, it's really excellent to see that kind of representation. And people were still to see themselves on the screen. So, oh my God, I never thought that I would see something like that, you know, in my time. So it's really, and some people thought that they would never see something like that in their time. So the progress of what we're making is really excellent. And that's where we really need, as disabled people, we really need to see, to be seen and be heard, and just be seen and heard as human. So, you know, that's a really important thing that we need to focus on today. And disabled people need to be on the stage, on TV, in games, and more people like, you know, like in Marvel, like for example, with what they did in Marvel, like we need to have more characters like that. So, and really, like what Gail was saying, I really, you know, support that. And I'm just really thrilled to have had this opportunity. And I'm really honored to have this opportunity to be a part of that.
We're all so excited for you. It's just so great. So great. Prince, you've done some wonderful film work recently, but you started as a theater actor.
Right.
So do you think, what are your thoughts about, is the lack of disabled representation related to the lack of disabled talent, trained talent, as Gail kind of talked to at the beginning about, like, is there a dearth because there's no role modeling? Do you know?
Yeah.
So what
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just like Natasha also was saying, it's also about representation. Not being able to see yourself is, how else can you get inspired if you don't feel like you can be on stage or on screen? Sometimes you need to see people like yourself to really believe in that, right? And I think about being in theater school, and I wonder how many students or how many people will feel comfortable enough to go to theater school to get that training, and are teachers ready and willing to deal with that, and how accepting are they being? I went to a classical theater school as well, so there weren't any BIPOC, hardly anyone. I was like the only one there that graduated from that class. And I remember just having a horrible experience of like even the makeup tutorials, right? Because this person had no experience of how to deal with my skin, and it made me feel a bit outcasted. When you have things like that happen, yeah, it's a little disheartening, right? And it's hard to make people relate to that. So once people understand your story more and try to figure you out and be more inclusive, then you'll find you'll have all different types of performers on the stage and screen, but also what I would like is to be able to play a role where you don't have to have an accident or disability defined. It's just a part of your story. It doesn't completely define you, right? And that's what really excites me. That's what I want to see more. And that's what I'm starting to experience more, where people are willing to challenge the story and say, we won't explain what happened or anything. Let them figure it out. Let them make up their own mind about it, right? Yeah. I like that change,
I sense a theme today. Everyone's sensing a theme. So exciting. Mr. Yates, over to you.
So I think similarly to Prince, one of the things that is so important to remember is thinking about not only modeling, but also changing those conversations and changing the material that students are actually functionally engaging with. I think that this speaks also to Gail's comment that we have to train people to be ready to ride the wave. In some cases, that's thinking about changing the needle for conversations for non-disabled actors performing disability. For example, in my classes, I describe this as disability simulations, which are not necessarily about performing the body like it actually is, but rather most of those individuals are experiencing sensory deprivation or a limitation of their own body, which then automatically puts disability in a negative frame rather than as a productive frame. In the deaf community, we call this deaf gain, right? You are gaining deafness rather than losing your hearing or experiencing hearing loss. And those are different attitudinal shifts. As we are thinking about how to also help model and train new actors, it's engagement with work. For example, Gray Theater's work, the work of writers like Katie O'Reilly, who are producing work by, for, and about disabled artists and helping students learn, partially through exposure, that there are artists who are capable of producing high quality content, high quality art that may not be considered mainstream because of its center around disability. By showing that this work is possible, by studying it, by engaging with it, by valuing it in our training programs, we're also setting students up to be able to produce it, to be able to cast those artists or select that work in a season selection committee. All of those types of ways that we might value disability in spaces that are not explicitly on stage themselves, but are in all of the paratheatrical spaces as well.
John actually taught me about deaf gain, didn't you, John?
Yes, I remember that, David. Yes, I did.
Yeah, it's
deaf gain is such a positive, has so many positive parts to it.
Definitely.
And it's universal to this conversation, as Sam just said, that we need to think of disabilities as being a gain, as being something that's going to be, added as opposed to subtracted, because so often I think disability is seen as a less than as opposed to an addition. Like, that's the shift I hope to see. I can't believe we are almost out of time. I knew it would fly by. I want to leave space for any of you to share on the idea of exploitation, tokenism? When does this inclusion kind of cross a line into, oh, they're just using me to have able-bodied people feel better, right? That conversation. And how do you manage that? How do you navigate when it, yeah, anybody have thoughts on that? John?
Well, I can think about a time recently where a hearing actor might have taken a role that was written for a deaf actor, and we all would, our deaf actors, we would get together and try to think of how to have a positive conversation about that, whoever it is, so that they go forward and can think about why it doesn't work. The authenticity isn't present. I think it's really a question for we're all thinking about what is the best language use to educate people out there so that there is less of that tokenism and exploitation. It's a fight for good that we are all being mindful of. And I think there's some honest soul searching that has to take place with all of us. Natasha, do you want to add to this idea?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that the most important thing, what I see is a lack of communication. That seems to be the main thing. Like, if we don't have that type of conversation at all, there can really be a gap there. So I think out there, people are just afraid. You know, they're afraid, they don't know what to do. They feel taken aback, you know, they want to run away. But I think they have to understand that, you know, we're here together. And even though we're together, we're all progressing. And it's okay, you know, to feel nervous. It's okay to feel scared, with people with disabilities. It's okay to have those hard conversations. And it's important that there's no right or wrong. You know, we're all here for you. We're not here to, you know, hurt you or anything, obviously. And it's about progressing those conversations of exploitation and not, you know, exploiting disabled person, and really focusing on, you know, how to include everyone, and everyone's watching. And, you know, just don't be afraid, you know, to talk. Don't be afraid to have those conversations. Like at the dinner table, you know, we can, you know, throw things out and have those conversations and share our experiences and share your thoughts as well. So, you know, that's just my thought.
You know, David, there's a little thing that comes up every now and then that I think changes things for us. Quite often when there's a minor character with the disability is their name. Wheels, Special Olympic athlete, deaf guy, that kind of thing. And so if I get down to negotiating for a client for this role, in my negotiations, I ask for a name for the character. I don't want a resume full of wheels guy, wheeler guy, you know, arm amputee, bloody stump. You know, I don't want those names for my characters on my clients on their resumes. I want them to have a name. I want them to have the dignity of the name of a human being, please.
I love that. Yes. Yes, like Crutchy and Newsies, yeah. Well, friends, I would suggest to anyone watching that isn't following.
Also, John is saying, I just have to jump in here because in the history of Disney, when you think of Snow White, the seventh dwarf was named Deafy at some time. Did you know that? There is history there about that.
Didn't
and then they
know
decided
that.
to change that name. I thought that was so interesting to discover that as part of our past. So things like that, Gail, still have occurred and still do occur.
And they think Dopey was an improvement. You know, when you think of that character, it's
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I am so grateful. I feel like we've moved the needle. Every one of these conversations, I feel even if we inch forward, is an inch more forward than we've been at the top of this conversation. So I can't thank you all enough for being here. If you're not following these pioneers, please get them on social, because they are really blazing a trail, these guests of this meeting. So thank you all so much for your hard work. It takes energy to do this. So I am grateful on behalf of everyone watching, and wish you nothing but success as we continue to break down this fear. It's fear. I agree with everyone who spoke about that. So let's just start, continue to smash those walls down and do what we do. Thanks, everyone. And thank you to BroadwayCon for allowing us to have space to have this conversation. That's all for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.